ENCA reporter Heidi Jokos was at that Telkom briefing earlier this morning. She joins us now in the studio to speak further about what's come out of there. Afternoon to you, Heidi. What is the source of all of this?
So it all started when Icasa came out saying that termination rates need to be dropped by 70%. Now, to explain what termination rates are, it basically means that the cost that is, so the network provider's cost for Vodacom to call Telkom customers and vice versa. So that Icasa wants this to be dropped by 70%. And, you know, Telkom coming out and saying that this is basically going to kill the mobile business for small players. And it's obviously created a big issue for somebody like Telkom, for the telecoms company like Telkom, as well as Cell C, because they are the smaller players within this industry. And Icasa will obviously have to make a decision on whether this will actually come into play by October.
Speak to us about this 70% figure from Icasa. How did they arrive at that number?
So they are basically saying that the cost is too high. You know, the rate between the you know, for phone calls between the different network providers. And you must remember that South Africa is a very expensive country when it comes to telecoms, because our data is extremely, you know, it's extremely high. We pay very much for data, as well as, you know, voice calls, you know, normal mobile phone calls. So obviously Icasa, which is the regulators, now trying to come in and is trying to regulate this and trying to obviously drop the costs for customers. But this obviously has a major impact on the telecoms, because a small player like Telkom is now battling to find its feet, because they, if you remember back in the day, it was, you know, a landline at home, and obviously as technology has evolved, it needed to adapt, and it wasn't in the mobile network, it wasn't in the mobile space, whereas Vodacom and MTN have always been the bigger players in this. And being such a small player, they're obviously at the back end of it, and they're obviously trying to manage with this drop, because it obviously means a loss for them.
I'll speak to the issue of the bigger players in the industry in just a moment, but Telkom now giving this warning that if they do indeed go ahead with this demand, or Icasa's recommendation that they drop these rates by 70%, it will affect workers hardest.
So we were speaking to the CEO of Telkom today, and we asked him up front, what does this mean for jobs? Because we do know that retrenchments have been looming at Telkom, not specifically because of this Icasa regulation, but there has been some speculation that Telkom needs to cut down on jobs. We saw the CEO basically saying that that is an option, because if this happens, you must remember that Telkom doesn't only specialize in one specific sector within the telecoms industry. So for them to drop these termination rates by 70%, that obviously means that Telkom now needs to find ways to get more income, to ensure that they make a profit out of this, and it's going to be very difficult if costs are dropped, rates are dropped by 70%. So they have made it very clear that they are looking at job cuts. You must remember that about 10 years ago, or even more, Telkom employed about 50,000 people, and to date they only employ 18,000. So there has already been a massive cut, and he was basically saying that tomorrow they are meeting with unions and Labour to discuss what is going to possibly happen, but it is looming. We will probably see some sort of job cuts if the regulation is passed in October.
Okay, Heidi, let's leave it there for now. We'll no doubt get more updates from you throughout the day.